Force feedback has always been the ultimate target when it comes to building a flight sim setup. Feeling the effect of airflow on the control surfaces, the rumble of the tarmac beneath you, or the satisfaction of being correctly trimmed puts you as close to the real thing as possible. But, and it's a big but, it has always been notoriously expensive. In today's video, I'm taking a look at a product that may very well change that, the Moza AB9. Let's take a look, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel as only a small percentage of you are. Now first off, a full disclosure here, Moza did send me this for free to review. I'm incredibly lucky, but this video does remain my own view. As I've always said, being open to my audience is much more important than a relationship with one company. Anyway, what you're looking at me unbox here is the Moza AB9 force feedback base and the Moza MH16 flight stick, based of course off the F16. Now for those of you unaware of what force feedback is, it's a more advanced variant of sim controls that pulls data from your sim and dynamically throws it back out through your controls in the real world. So for example, you'll feel a stall buffet by the stick shaking, or when you slam into the ground with dodgy landings, you'll feel that through the stick. Or when indeed the wind picks up a wing in small planes, you'll feel that. Force feedback has been around for decades, but it's always been quite expensive, often exceeding the £1,000 to £2,000 mark quite easily. Moza bring the price down quite significantly. The AB9 base is around £549 UK, and the modular stick options start from £80 UK. The MH16, the one I've got, is slightly pricier at £169 UK. Of course, money's still not to be sniffed at, but certainly a more democratic option in that field. Everything comes very neatly packed up in their respective boxes, and I was instantly struck by how heavy everything was. Almost complete metal construction, if you want to be nerdy about it. It's an aluminium alloy to be specific, minus some buttons on the stick which are plastic or rubber. From the moment I looked inside, I knew I was going to be very impressed by the build quality. Setup is indeed rather easy. All the sticks are modular, they can be swapped in and out. Basically plug and play, and once you've got the stick mounted with a variety of options there, I've got the desk mount, but if you've got something like a next level racing rig, there are plenty of screws to of course mount the stick up. But once you've got it all installed, hardware wise anyway, you plug in your power adapter and just one USB into your PC, and then software wise you'll have to download the Moza Cockpit Control app, which has built-in drivers for almost all commercial sims, from DCS to X-Plane to of course Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 and 2024. And that's it, you're basically set up. The app is very good, it gives you rather precise control over button bindings and output from the force feedback stick, whether that be friction, torque or springiness. You can also change how it interprets the data from the sim, whether it does it via a preset, whether it does it from telemetry data, which is data directly from the sim, or whether it does it all in-house. The maximum output of torque on the AB9 base is 12 Newton meters, which is quite a bit of force to contend with when you go towards the upper tier of the 12 Newton meters. And to make it very easy, as I said, there's an array of presets to click and play for the Moza to work, from the 737 in Microsoft Flight Sim to the F15 and DCS, and indeed it doesn't matter what planes you fly or helicopters you fly, these are just presets for how the stick works, so regardless of what preset you go for, it will work with any aircraft. Now onto the sims to see this in action. We'll start off with the military option, of course, as I've got a military stick variant. Here in DCS, this flight stick really shines. I can feel the rumble of the air afterburners when powering up and the vibrations from the cannons when firing. It's really, really immersive. I don't use DCS all too often, but this is certainly something that could drag me back into it. If you're a die-hard military simmer, and I know a good few of my mates are, something like this is really a must-have if you want to elevate the realism of your sim, because you're feeling the aircraft. and that is leaps and bounds above what most of us are used to. But of course, how does it work on Microsoft Flight Simulator? Well, on 2020 and 2024, it's plug and play. When you've got the app installed, controls can still be assigned in the Sim Controls menu, but I recommend, of course, swapping to a good preset via the Moza app. Swapping to the Phoenix preset in the Moza app and flying here in the A320, it's an effective control, but of course there's a very big caveat here. As with most modern airliners, this is all fly-by-wire, so as in the real world, you're not going to be getting too much feedback through the stick, as opposed to an aircraft where the controls are mechanically linked. This does mean force feedback is somewhat limited in effectiveness here, but I think you still get what they call seat of your pants sensation. So when you get the gear up, you'll feel that. Even, and when you deploy the spoilers, you'll feel it sort of slowing the aircraft down and getting the rumble through the stick as you would when sat in the cabin. It's certainly a bit more immersive, but if you find yourself only really flying Airbus airliners or fly-by-wire airliners such as the 787, this is probably not a very worthwhile investment, as you are limited to, of course, the point of force feedback. But where this really comes into play though is with more conventional mechanical aircraft with pulleys and cables, and I know most of them will have yokes, and you have to take that as a bit of a compromise with this stick, because with the pulleys and trim systems of aircraft from the smallest of bush planes up to really the 737, this is where force feedback really becomes quite exciting. Here in the Cessna Caravan, I felt every little gust of wind through the stick, dips and bumps in the runway when taking off, and I felt when I wasn't trimmed correctly because I was having to fight with the stick, as you do in a real aircraft. And of course, once you trim, the pressure loosens, and you can feel when it's all good when you're only putting really small inputs into the stick. Probably the best showcase of this stick in action is when you enable the autopilot, because the stick will move as the autopilot manipulates the controls. So if the plane is banking to the right, you'll witness the stick move to the right. If we're climbing, of course the stick moves back with the back pressure. You get the idea. I've been using the flight stick for weeks and it really never gets old. Of course, if you're aggressive with it and you fight with the autopilot through the joystick, as with the real aircraft, past the point the autopilot will disengage and the pressure will release. It's bloody amazing. In something light and little like a Cessna 152, I know, again, it's a yoke, but the feeling of being out of trim and then trimming your aircraft and feeling the pressure loosen up on the stick is just very, very good. And to be honest, it makes you a much better sim pilot. I remember when I was learning to fly in real life, and in my first few hours, compared to simming, I was struck by the importance of trim, and finally this is a way to feel it here in the sim. So let's run through the good and the bad. As you can tell, I am very impressed with this bit of kit. It is genuinely very good, especially when you think of the price point in comparison to the market. It's well made, the software is good. I think there were some issues initially, but I haven't experienced them. The only issue I really have is when swapping planes. I find occasionally you have to restart the app to get the flight stick working properly, but aside from that, I've got no complaints. I've really sat here and tried to think of issues with the stick that I should point out to you guys, but aside from its natural bulkiness, you know, it does take quite a bit of space, I really can't think of anything bad. It is a very good product. It remains expensive for most people, and I know I was very lucky to get it sent to me, but it is an exquisite product, and that is my honest verdict. Ladies and gents, thanks for watching this video. I hope you've learnt something and enjoyed experiencing the Moza AB9 and MH16 flight stick with me. Of course, a massive thank you once again to Moza for sending this across to review. It's been a genuine honour to take a look at it. On that note, share your thoughts down below. Have I been way too positive, or is this on your Christmas list? Let me know in the comments. On that note, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't done already. But from me today, happy flying and goodbye.